I helped an elderly man load his truck. Then he introduced me to his daughter. The old man was struggling to lift a heavy table saw into the back of his truck when I walked past him. He looked exhausted, his hands were shaking, and the machine was clearly too heavy for one person. I could have kept walking. Instead, I stopped and said, "Sir, let me give you a hand." He looked at me for a moment, then smiled. "Are you sure, son?" "Absolutely." Neither of us knew that those simple words were about to change my life. It was a hot Saturday afternoon, and I had just finished shopping at the hardware store. I was carrying a small bag of supplies when I noticed an elderly man standing beside an old red pickup truck. The tailgate was down. A large, battered table saw sat halfway between the truck bed and the parking lot. The man was trying to push it forward, but every time he moved it a few inches, the machine slipped backward. I watched him struggle for a few seconds. Then I walked over. "Let me help you with that." He immediately shook his head. "No, no. I can handle it." I smiled. "I believe you. But you don't have to." He stared at me, almost as if nobody had offered him help in a long time. Finally, he stepped aside. "Grab that end." I put my hands underneath the metal frame. 1, 2, 3. We lifted together. The machine was much heavier than it looked. I tightened my grip and pushed with everything I had. The old man laughed. "Still got some life in these old bones." "I can see that." We pushed the table saw into the truck bed and lowered it carefully. The old man closed the tailgate and wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. "Thank you." "It was nothing." He shook his head. "No. It wasn't." I thought he was just being polite, so I smiled and started walking away. Then he called after me. "Wait." I turned around. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his wallet. "How much do you charge?" I laughed. "Nothing. Everyone charges something. Not for helping someone." He studied my face. Then he slowly put his wallet away. "What's your name?" I told him. He nodded. "My name is Frank." We shook hands. His grip was surprisingly strong. Then he looked toward the entrance of the store. "You know, my daughter is going to be angry with me." I smiled. "Why?" "She told me not to lift anything heavy." I laughed. "She sounds like a smart woman." Frank smiled. "She is." There was something about the way he said it. Not just pride. Love. A lot of love. Then he glanced toward the parking lot. "She should be here any minute." I nodded. "Well, I hope you have a safe drive home." I turned to leave again. But before I could take 3 steps, I heard a woman's voice. "Dad." Frank's face changed immediately. He looked toward the parking lot. A young woman was walking toward us. She was dressed in a beautiful red dress, carrying a black purse over her shoulder. She looked worried. "Dad, what did you do?" Frank raised both hands. "I didn't do anything." She looked at the table saw. Then she looked at him. "Dad." He pointed at me. "I had help." She stopped. Her eyes moved toward me. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then Frank smiled. "This is the man who saved me from that ridiculous machine." She looked at me and smiled. "Thank you." "You're welcome." She walked closer. "I'm sorry. My father thinks he's still 30. Frank frowned. "I am perfectly capable of taking care of myself." She crossed her arms. "Then why was the table saw sitting halfway out of your truck?" Frank had no answer. I tried not to laugh. She noticed. "You think this is funny?" "A little." She smiled. Good. At least somebody is on my side. Frank shook his head. I've raised a traitor. She laughed. Then she looked at me again. Seriously, thank you. It really wasn't a big deal. She paused. What's your name? I told her. She repeated it softly, as if remembering it. I'm Emma. We shook hands. And somehow, that simple handshake felt different. I couldn't explain why. Maybe it was because of the way she looked at me. Maybe it was because she seemed genuinely grateful. Or maybe it was because, for the first time that day, I felt like I didn't want to walk away. Frank suddenly cleared his throat. Well, since you two are already friends. Emma looked at him suspiciously. Dad. He smiled. Why don't you invite him to dinner? I laughed. You don't have to do that. Emma looked at me. Then at her father. Then back at me. I was actually going to ask. I was surprised. Really? She nodded. Dad owes you dinner. Frank smiled. I knew I raised her right. Emma rolled her eyes. Don't ruin it. That evening, I found myself sitting across from Emma and Frank at a small family restaurant. At first, I felt awkward. I had only met them a few hours earlier. But Frank talked like we'd known each other for years. He told stories about his younger days, his old workshop, and how he had built furniture for most of his life. Emma listened to every story, even the ones she'd clearly heard 100 times. Every now and then, she'd look at me and smile. Eventually, Frank went quiet. He looked down at his hands. My wife used to sit right there. Emma's smile disappeared. I understood. She passed away? I asked gently. Frank nodded. 3 years ago. Emma reached across the table and touched his hand. Frank squeezed hers. She was the best woman I ever knew. There was a long silence. Then Emma said quietly, Dad hasn't been the same since. Frank looked at her. I've been fine. You've been pretending to be fine. He didn't argue. Instead, he looked at me. You know what the hardest part is? I shook my head. Coming home to a house where nobody asks how your day went. His words stayed with me. I realized then that helping him lift that table saw wasn't really what he needed. He needed someone to remind him that people still cared. After dinner, I offered to help Frank with a few things around his house. Emma smiled. You really don't have to. I know. Then why are you doing it? I looked at her. Because sometimes people need help even when they don't ask for it. She smiled. That sounds like something my dad would say. Frank shouted from the porch. I heard that. We all laughed. Over the next few weeks, I stayed in touch with them. I helped Frank organize his workshop. He taught me how to repair old furniture. Emma started joining us on weekends. Sometimes we'd work for hours without realizing how much time had passed. And somewhere along the way, something changed between Emma and me. We started talking after Frank went to bed. We talked about our dreams. Our failures. The things we were afraid of. One evening, Emma looked at me and said, Do you know why I was so worried about Dad that day? Because he was lifting something heavy? She shook her head. No. She took a breath. I was afraid he was going to stop trying. I looked at her. What do you mean? She looked toward the workshop. After Mom died, Dad stopped caring about everything. He barely went outside. He stopped building things. He stopped seeing people. She smiled sadly. And then you walked into that parking lot. I didn't know what to say. I didn't do anything special. Emma shook her head. You did. She looked directly into my eyes. You saw someone who needed help, and you stopped. I smiled. So did you. What? You stopped too. She smiled. And for a moment, neither of us said anything. Then she reached for my hand. I think I was supposed to meet you. My heart started beating faster. Emma. She smiled. Don't say anything. Why? Because I'm trying to be brave. I squeezed her hand. You don't have to be. She looked at me. I know. A few months later, Frank called me. Come over. Everything okay? Everything is perfect. When I arrived, I found him standing in the workshop beside the old table saw. He had built something. A wooden dining table. It was beautiful. What do you think? He asked. I ran my hand across the smooth surface. You made this? With some help. He looked toward Emma. She smiled. Frank cleared his throat. I built this table because I wanted my daughter to have something that reminded her of home. Then he looked at me. And because I wanted the man who helped me that day to understand something. What? He smiled. You didn't just help me load a truck. He placed a hand on my shoulder. You helped me believe that there are still good people in this world. I looked at Emma. She was smiling through tears. Frank continued. And if you're willing. He glanced at his daughter. I'd like you to be one of those good people in our family. I laughed softly. Emma walked toward me. I think Dad is trying to give you permission. Permission for what? She smiled. To stay. I looked at Frank. Then at Emma. And I realized something. Sometimes the biggest changes in our lives don't begin with grand gestures. They begin with something small. A simple decision to stop. A simple question. Do you need a hand? That afternoon in the parking lot, I thought I was helping an elderly man load a heavy machine into his truck. I had no idea I was actually helping him carry something much heavier. Loneliness. Grief. And the fear that life had already passed him by. And in return, that stranger gave me something I never expected. A family. A home. And a woman who made me believe that sometimes, the best things in life happen when you simply choose to help someone who needs you. Because I almost kept walking that day. And if I had, I would have missed the greatest introduction of my life.